Hi, this is Cassandra Lee Morris, and you're listening to the AniMonday podcast. Please enjoy your weekly dose of random anime.
Hello and welcome to the AniMonday podcast. My name is Colin Hemphill.
And I'm Kayla Hemphill.
On our show, we roll the virtual dice and must watch a randomly selected anime title. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
You could say that.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
It surely has. I guess the thing here is we just kind of disappeared.
We did. We put out like one very topical episode and then vanished.
We put out Cinderella Girls and then stuff happened.
Yeah.
We interviewed Kira.
Yeah.
And that was great. That was like early pandemic.
She was super great.
And we were like, man, I hope we get to do more interview stuff. So we started thinking about like reaching out to other voice actors and things like that. And then more stuff happens.
Yeah.
It's been a lot. And I think there were a couple of things going on. Aside from like everything going on in the world, there was also just the element of like we started this podcast because we wanted a hobby for us to do together.
Yeah, most of our hobbies are pretty independent of each other. Like, you're a musician and I am not.
Yeah. And so, like, we had been interested in doing a podcast, and I have the audio equipment to make this happen, and so that's just something that we wanted to do together. If you've heard AniMonday Origins, like, we talk about that more.
So at the beginning of the pandemic, we also were living with a roommate. So the three of us were trying to work from home, and we kind of muscled through that, and then our roommate got married, which was very exciting.
Yep.
Because we know a lot of people were not able to get married.
Yep.
And you and I were still trying to muscle through, both of us working at home. And then stuff started changing even more.
Yeah. So we used to record like in a tiny closet. It was not air conditioned or anything.
No.
And it was super padded up and, sounded acoustically great and everything. But that was an hour of our time every week or every 2 weeks that we were locked in a closet together. And then being the perfectionist that I am, I would spend 4+ hours editing a single episode and things like that. And so I think there was just like mental health sort of steps that we wanted to take to reduce the amount of things that we were trying to do during the pandemic. And that was a big part of it. We really just didn't need that much time together anymore.
No.
We already had plenty of that.
Yes, all the time. We suddenly had all the time. It was sort of like the episode of The Twilight Zone where he's like, but I had time. But that's what it felt like.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so just all of the like personal stuff going on, and then the fact that we live in Texas where we were in a global pandemic and they did not take that seriously at all.
No, if you had seen anything about what Texas was like, they basically pretended that the pandemic was gone. It was a fight to get people to wear masks at all. And we fortunately live in an area that's pretty densely populated. So our mayor was like, fine, we will find a way to empower businesses to be able to have mask mandates. So that eventually got rolled out, but it was rough going there.
Yeah, and of course, like we alluded to in the summer of last year, with all of the protests against police violence and racial violence and general racism across the board.
Yeah.
that is kind of when Black Anime Podcasts, it's a website that we have talked about on Twitter a little bit, and we have since kind of tried to promote some of the creators who are working in that space. And since anime podcasting, I think, is pretty saturated as it is, but to see like how much Black podcasting community there is in anime was really exciting for us, and getting to enjoy those podcasts over the last year has been great. Just to have diversity in that community is awesome. And so we didn't necessarily feel like we needed to be talking at the time.
No.
Especially like the anime that we wanted to watch last year was stuff we had already seen. We really, as much as we love y'all, we didn't want to watch a bunch of garbage last year and then have to talk about it and work on it all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a mix of like selfish reasons that we took a break and just other stuff going on that it felt like the right move.
So because it's been a year, there has been some stuff that has happened. Like I said, we ended up getting our friend married, which was great. And part of what was great about that is that we rearranged a lot of stuff in our house to make, however long this was going to last, more livable. And part of that was moving your studio from being just kind of in this open space that we had to actually giving you a full dedicated room for your office, your studio, your recording space, everything.
Yeah, basically where I was working 5 days a week through, I don't know, the first 5 months or so was kind of that studio space, which was like a loft that is very open and like doesn't give me a whole lot of privacy and doesn't really allow for video conferencing to happen in a super helpful way for both of us. So we were lucky enough to be able to convert one of our bedrooms into this space that we're in right now, which is there's actually a combination of a control room that's all acoustically treated, and then an actual like recording booth that has tie lines and everything. And so I think that offers us some new possibilities in that we are in a room with a fan right now.
Yeah, I was about to talk about the fan. The fan's the best.
And so, I don't know, if you have a discerning ear and notice any audio differences in the podcast, part of it is I don't care as much as I did last year. I have learned to loosen up a little bit, and so I'm not going to be spending quite as much time editing and things like that.
Which I appreciate.
We've switched from, the highest quality condenser microphones that sound real nice and crisp and extreme like padding and everything for acoustic treatment. And we went to broadcast microphones that'll help make editing easier and things like that. So we still want to like really care about the quality and the production and the effort that we put into things. But I have learned that I'm not the person listening to this podcast. And there are very few who probably care as much as I do.
Well, and really something that really mattered to me was figuring out how to make this more sustainable. Because while this was a really fun hobby for us, it started turning into a job, and that was not fun. And so even, before the pandemic, we were talking about like, okay, doing this every week has been really hard on us to watch a show, maybe rewatch a show, take all the notes that we need to take, do the recording session, do hours of editing. It just was not sustainable. So we moved to every other week.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of a continuation of how do we make this sustainable, but still high quality.
And I think one of the things about the core format of our show that does make it sustainable is the fact that we built it off of a randomizer so that Kayla and I are not having to constantly come up with the material. It just appears for us. And then we in terms of that, something did happen last year that was not expected.
Yeah, Crunchyroll has made some changes.
Yeah, they started by, at some point, and I don't know exactly when it happened because I don't use the desktop app that frequently, but they completely removed the random button from the actual UI in the top nav bar.
Yeah, and that just made it super easy. Like, we could just click that button and then random anime would pop up.
And I did dig up that there is still a link you can visit that will kind of redirect you to a random anime. And so that functionality is still there. But Crunchyroll is in the middle of rolling out a new beta interface that they're going to be applying to all users across the entire website. And the API that I had found seems to be only linked to their old UI. And so there's a good chance that when they roll out the new interface, it's just gone forever.
Yeah, and so being the person that Colin is, you decided to make something.
Yeah, so I didn't want the podcast to suffer as a result of that change, and so I had kind of been thinking about this for a while, just in case something ever did happen to that button. With this being like core to our show, I did find somebody who has open APIs to allow you to interact with anime series. In particular, I found one called Kitsu, that their website's just like a cool, helpful place where you can select which streaming services you have access to and like what genres you like, and if there's like a rating you want to stay within, and let you filter anime that way. And so using their APIs, I was able to create my own randomizer.
I wish I could say that I was surprised, but this is the kind of stuff that Colin does in his spare time. I'm constantly like, why are you doing work? And he's like, this isn't work, this is fun.
It is.
Oh. I don't do my job in my spare time, but you do. You like to code in your spare time.
I do, yeah.
Another hobby we don't share.
Luckily, this was very straightforward to do. Took me all of 2 hours to get as much as I have right now. But that is now publicly available if you want to check it out and try it for yourself. It is at animonday.moe/random.
He's real proud of it.
It is pretty limited right now, but I do enjoy clicking it over and over again.
Yeah. Or having me click it over and over again.
Well, I think that more or less covers like what we didn't necessarily do over that time. But I think we'll take a break now. And when we come back, let's talk about what we did do last year.
And watch and enjoy and maybe not enjoy.
Yeah, a little of everything.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this short break.
So now that we're back, let's actually talk about some anime.
Yeah, we didn't completely abandon anime when we stopped doing the podcast. But maybe things changed a little bit in terms of what we normally do. I think this was kind of a universal thing that we heard, is that people just went back to their comfort anime.
Yes.
Their comfort series, whatever your The Office is.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people were watching last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think some of the standout ones for us, we rewatched K-On!
Yeah.
And Kaguya-sama.
Yes.
Which are ones that we've talked about on the show quite a bit.
Yeah, part of why we watched Kaguya-sama is because the dub came out.
Mm-hmm.
Like right around that time.
Yeah, and the dub started with season 2.
Yeah, so then we had to go back and watch season 1. And then we had to watch season 2 because we had watched season 1.
We watched a lot of Kaguya-sama.
Yeah, we did.
We also rewatched Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. And we mostly reintroduced that one because there's a new season coming out.
Woo woo.
And that was just a nice, fun one that seemed like it would be good to rewatch before the new season came out.
The theming in these shows is that they are all very comfortable to watch. There's not a whole lot of drama, or if there is drama, it's more like comedic than heart-wrenching.
There were a few old ones that I was more or less familiar with that Kayla hadn't seen before. And so I introduced you to a few of those, Konosuba being one.
Yeah.
And kind of related to that, DanMachi, or Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, which is a worse name.
Yeah. No, but I loved it.
Yeah, both kind of, I don't know, I guess sort of on the isekai side of things.
But it's definitely poking fun at it, of just being like, this is this ridiculous drama, and what if we just went full into the ridiculousness that is the isekai?
Yeah. We also watched The Devil is a Part-Timer.
Yes, also because another season's coming out soon.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll have some more of that. It's a surprisingly funny show.
Yes.
Just has no reason to be as good as it is.
Mm-hmm. I watched that when I was really sick one day. I had some sort of like stomach bug thing, and I watched like the entire season in like a 24-hour period.
We also watched Robotics Notes, which is kind of in the Steins Gate universe.
Which is pretty much the first... Steins Gate was the first anime that you and I ever watched together. So it was kind of nice to go back into that style without all the heaviness of Steins Gate.
Right. Yeah, even when it tries to be a little bit serious, it doesn't even come close to the kind of things that were in Steins Gate.
Yeah.
I think for the same reason, like, it is nowhere near what Steins Gate is.
No.
I think it was a little bit like not many people really watched it, even if they did enjoy Steins Gate.
It's a very different vibe, but it's not a bad vibe. It's just different.
Mm-hmm. We also just finished Noragami.
Yes.
Which I honestly could not remember if it was good or not. But I remember having it on my list, watching it, and having some fond memory of it. I just couldn't remember a whole lot of it.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Before subjecting Kayla to it, I checked what is the 2021 discourse on Noragami, and turns out people still like it. So
yeah, and then we figured out, we thought there was only one season, and it turns out there are two and an OVA. So we only just finished the first season.
Yep. And I think one of the big ones for you recently has been the new Fruits Basket.
Yes. Guys, I love Fruits Basket. I watched the 2009, I don't
remember the date.
I think it was 2009. I could be wrong. The original dubbed Fruits Basket. Read the manga series. So when the 2019 announcement came out that there was going to be basically a redoing, sort of like how Full Metal Alchemist finished before the manga had finished, and then they came back and did Brotherhood, which followed the manga more closely. That's what the 2019 Fruits Basket did. And I just finished it because the third and final season just finished, and I sobbed through all of it. And it was beautiful and amazing, and I'm so impressed that a lot of the same voice actors carried over from the original, and they sound the same or even better, which is incredible because it's been like 10 years.
Yeah, for sure. And me having not really watched any of that, I at least when I look at the new one, like the way they've redone the character designs and the modern kind of animation styles are all really, really nice in a way that I didn't necessarily love the old like manga kind of style character designs. And they introduced like Matt Mercer in the dub and things like that.
Who played Okabe in Steins Gate?
Oh, J. Michael Tatum.
J. Michael Tatum is also in it. And they announced, this is part of why J. Michael Tatum came to mind, they announced that there's going to be a spinoff series about Toru's parents. J. Michael Tatum plays Toru's dad.
Yeah. We also finally watched Mob Psycho.
Yes, that's been on the list forever.
Which, similarly, like, we started and enjoyed One Punch Man, but we never finished it. I don't know why exactly. We just dropped it at some point.
I think because we started watching My Hero and it felt like too much superhero stuff.
Could be. So we finished season 1 of Mob Psycho, and I really enjoyed that. I think I like it a whole lot more than One Punch Man. It's less of just kind of a show based on one joke, and then seeing how long they can stretch that out. I also heard mixed things about season 2 of One Punch Man, and so it felt weird to just keep pushing through that if I wasn't really digging it. But supposedly everyone loves Mob Psycho, like, all the way through.
Another show that I really got into that Colin did not get into was Haikyuu. I kept seeing on Netflix, incidentally, and it just looked bright and colorful. And I decided I don't really watch sports animes, mostly because I'm not really interested in sports, but I am interested in slice of life. And so I gave it a shot, and I really enjoyed it. So I just finished season 2. Their first 2 seasons are dubbed, and you can find that on Netflix. Seasons 3 and 4 are getting dubs, I believe, is how it's being communicated. But they will be on maybe Crunchyroll exclusively. And perhaps the 3rd season's already out. The timeline for that's a little wibbly-wobbly for me, but they're not all going to be in the same place, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no thanks. Not interested. We also, I think they put out last year also Yuru Camp Season 2, which was beautiful and really nice and just kind of continued well on what they had been doing with the first season. I think they mostly avoided it feeling like this is, a tourism pamphlet.
Yes.
And they eventually got to where it's really about Rin and her friends just like learning to be okay with each other's different personalities and how to interact with each other through those. I thought they did a really good job with it.
And we talked about this before, especially as introverts. The show is really kind to the introvert personality in a way that a lot of shows, not just anime, but a lot of shows tend to treat the introvert personality as something to overcome. So it's like, oh, they're just really shy, but if I were to help them break free of their shell, they won't be an introvert anymore. And this show allows Rin to be the introvert that she is, but also still be social when she wants to be. And it's her figuring out how to balance that in a way that feels authentic to herself and still developing these really solid, beautiful friendships.
Yeah, her friends never get upset with her for wanting to go solo camping, which is Rin's favorite thing to do, and it's what she's always done. And camping with friends is a new thing for her and not her comfort zone, not what she wants to do all the time, not what got her interested in going camping. But they never are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're going solo camping again. You could come with us or we could go with you. In fact, her friend at one point is like, wow, you love solo camping so much. I gotta try that. And she's terrible at it. She immediately wants to go bother other campers because she's, bored of being alone there. And I think ultimately, she comes away from that experience of maybe this isn't my favorite thing. It's not for me, but I want to do this again because it's a different experience and it allows me to experience camping the way that you do.
Well, and I think even she finds a way to do solo camping in a way that still feels authentic to her.
Yeah.
So like you say, go bother other campers, but I think like we have a friend who does that. You know, anytime that she goes on, you know, public transportation, or if, you know, anytime she's in a new space, she always makes friends. And I was thinking about that. Like, this is a girl who can make friends even if she's going somewhere solo.
Yeah.
And that's still very much who she is, even if she's doing a more introverted activity.
Right.
And to say that only introverts can enjoy a solo activity and only extroverts can enjoy a group activity, in this show, they really break that apart and say there can be room for both and still be who you are. And it's not about having a character flaw. It's just a different way of experiencing this activity of camping.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand, an extremely disappointing season 2 is Cells at Work.
Which is such a shame because season 1 was so solid. It was so good.
Yeah.
How did we get to this season 2? How did this happen?
It took so many wrong directions, I think, and possibly above all was reintroducing like a primary antagonist from the first season and continuing that through like 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah, way too long.
Just an enormous arc of like one disease that they're trying to root out. They also introduced like these cute character like creatures,
bacteria.
Yeah,
they were
a type
good
of bacteria
gut bacteria.
Right. It's basically like a Tribbles and served no purpose in the anime really, and wasn't really that cute even.
I mean, I thought they were cute, but
sure. But even like the new things that they introduced, the new diseases or the new bodily functions that they talked about in the show weren't really that interesting or unique. And like there's an episode about acne that is the darkest episode of the entire series. Absolutely unnecessarily so.
And part of what didn't work was that they took a lot of the main characters and put them in the background.
Yeah.
And then brought in this very, I mean, literally generic cell character. It's just a like blank cell.
Yeah, plain cell.
And no personality, like, and that was the front runner for the entire show. So like red blood cell and white blood cell. White blood cell's around more, but red blood cell is like gone.
Hardly.
She basically just pops up randomly throughout the season. And so you don't get the dynamic between the characters that we used to get and even the reoccurring characters that we got to meet in season 1. You know, the different types of white blood cells, the different, you know, workers. They all just kind of randomly appear and they just don't seem to matter as much. It was this hyper focused on this one cell with this gut bacteria, and that was the season.
Yeah, so that one was a bummer. But we also finally watched Pokemon Journeys.
That feels like a lifetime ago.
The latest Pokemon season, of course. Featuring Ash and Go this time.
Yes.
And I felt pretty good about that one.
Surprisingly so. I think there was a few series from, if you compare to like the original Pokemon show in the 90s that I feel like every millennial touched at some point, to some of the more recent series, there were a lot in there that I was not interested in. I did not like the characters, not into. But we had also watched Sun and Moon and were surprisingly okay with the Sun and Moon series. And then Journey, we were sort of like, I don't know. I don't know who this Go character is. People are saying that it's going to be a replacement for Ash. We'll see. We were into it. It was really interesting to see a very different kind of character than Ash. Ash has this very specific sort of, I want to be like a Pokemon master. And most of the characters that have been like sidekicks to Ash kind of feel the same way, but like they just specialize in different kinds of Pokemon. And Go has an entirely different kind of dream, one that I personally relate to because it's how I play all the Pokemon games, which is I just want to collect every Pokemon. And that spoke to me as a person.
Yeah, and even their friend character who doesn't like Pokemon basically at all, like doesn't care about collecting or battling or anything. She has her Yamper.
Yes.
And just likes her dog, and that's it. I don't need anything else.
So it was nice to see a different kind of Pokemon world in which it's acceptable to be different kind of trainers and still be really aspirational in what they want to do in their Pokemon journeys. Also, Score Bunny is amazing.
Yeah. I'd say there were a couple that we watched, but maybe aren't super memorable. You watched Monthly Girl's Nozaki-kun.
Yep.
Which is fine. I had seen it before, and it has a terribly disappointing ending.
Yes.
You also watched Toilet Bound Hanako-kun.
Which I loved. The artwork caught me.
Yeah.
That's how I found it. I was just like, I have to watch this. This artwork is crazy, and I love it.
Which conceptually is a weird show and turned out to be kind of okay.
Yeah.
We also watched B&A, which is that Studio Trigger anime about like animal people, and it's very much what is that Disney movie?
Zootopia.
Yeah, it's very much that kind of thing.
Yeah, but Studio Trigger animation, which is always spot on.
Solid animation. It's okay.
Yeah.
One that I think we really liked, which is kind of the opposite, is Way of the Househusband.
Yes.
Which was, I think, Netflix exclusive, and it is about a former Yakuza member who has given up his life of crime to be a house husband.
Yes.
And is extremely good at his job.
Yes.
And treats it with kind of the same honor and respect that he brought with him from the Yakuza. And takes everything to the extreme. You know, his cooking, his building furniture, his shopping, all of that.
Gift giving.
Yep. And so the thing to note about that show is it is very limited in its animation.
Yeah, I think it started as like a web series. So if you think of it like a web series, that'll set your expectations for the animation.
Yeah, so just go into it like expecting that it's not going to be this fluid animation. It's more of a presentation of the concepts.
Yeah.
But still the voice acting is good.
Very
good. Both in English and Japanese, and it's absolutely hysterical.
Yeah, the jokes, I mean, the timing of the jokes, the nature of them, we talk about this a lot. A lot of anime tends to have a lot of word play humor. That just happens a lot in Japanese culture, and that doesn't always translate. This show translates really well for a lot of its humor, and that played to its strengths.
And I think, honestly, like the only in-season anime that we watched, besides Fruits Basket, was Wonder Egg Priority. Yes.
Which is a very different vibe to literally everything else that we watched.
Yeah. It's a lot. I felt that it had a really strong beginning. Kind of towards the end, they got into some weird stuff that I'm not necessarily like, I don't know. It's like a little too sci-fi kind of bizarre stuff. And so we kind of got stuck on that because of the heavy themes and everything, and we haven't quite finished it. But overall, I know people really like that show, and it seems like something that would be good to finish at some point.
The characters are so amazing, and it has a good ensemble cast. It's 4 girls that it focuses on. It really is special. But the entirety of the show is focused on trauma and processing trauma, coping with trauma, sometimes not coping with trauma. And so, not only is it just hard to swallow with everything going on outside of us, but even, I've talked before, like in my job, I tend to work with a lot of people with trauma. And so coming home and then watching more of that, sometimes I just need lightness.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And I think maybe not necessarily along the same lines, but we also dropped My Hero Academia. I think there was just something that got a little tiresome about it for me personally. It started with one of the seasons just being kind of disappointing in that I felt like they broke kind of one of the main rules of the universe that they had built. With like this drug that can suppress powers and things like that, really messes with the entire kind of way the show works. And that's kind of when I felt like the writing had really taken a dive. And then I just got really worried that this was going to be like the next Bleach or whatever that goes on for decades with no actual end in sight. And so they just keep doing the same kinds of arcs and extending the storyline in the same kind of direction over and over. And it seems like they have an actual end in mind for that show.
Do they? Because the manga's still going pretty strong.
I had heard that they had plans to end it.
Okay.
But if that's not the case, then yeah, I'm definitely dropping it and I'm not going to pick it up again. If it does seem like that show's going to end at some point in a reasonable amount of time, then maybe I'll go back to it at some point and, you know, keep going with that. Because I do still like the stories and especially the characters
Yeah,
are
the characters
kind
are
of
great.
the core part of that show. But yeah, we just weren't feeling it at some point.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just hard to keep up with such long form shows. You know, it's just like, okay, like I only have so much energy to devote. And sometimes it's like I want a beginning and an end and I want to feel like I accomplished something. And it is unclear when, if My Hero will end.
Yeah. Like we've kind of mentioned before, it's been a hard time for heavy anime.
Yes.
And so I think there are some things that have come out recently that are well received, but aren't necessarily the vibe that we're looking for in our anime at the moment. Things like Demon Slayer, we still haven't made it through.
Yeah, we watched, I think it was like the first episode, maybe the first 2 episodes, enjoyed it, thought it was well designed, but we were just like, whew, this is going to be something. We need more energy for this.
Yeah, and along the same lines, I think Jujutsu Kaisen is a big show that is kind of the same thing for us. We have wanted to go back to Fate Zero at some point, because we love Blade Works and love the director of Fate Zero.
Yep.
But yeah, know that's going to be heavy.
Yeah.
So I know you had also seen, as far as things that are on our list for sometime in the future, you put Yuri on ice.
Yes. Okay. So now that I have given myself the opportunity to actually enjoy a sports anime, I was just thinking, man, I should really like go back to one of the biggest sports anime shows there is, which is Yuri on Ice. Like, people who don't even like sports anime or anything, they know what Yuri on Ice is. And I've known what Yuri on Ice is for years now, and I just never watched it because even though I love figure skating, I was like, I don't know, this is going to feel very sportsy and But now I really think I'm in the space to be able to give it the full appreciation that it really deserves, because I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's still true. I don't know if people have looked back and been like, yeah, this is still a good show. But I remember people really loving this show when it came out.
Yeah. Yeah. And we had mentioned other stuff coming up, like new seasons of Kaguya-sama and Devil's a Part-Timer and Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. People are also excited about Chainsaw Man, which I will probably like and you will definitely not.
Nope. Not into it.
And then, of course, JoJo Season 6, Part 6 got announced, which I know is highly regarded.
Yeah.
So that might be a good point for me to jump in and try JoJo again.
Yeah. So, moving forward, we would like to get back into the swing of this. So hopefully we're going to be looking at having a more routine putting out of episodes, and that is the intention from here on out.
Yeah, and I think we're going to pick up right where we left off, which means Love Live Sunshine is out there. We did watch it.
We did.
And we just never recorded an episode, so we'll have to go probably watch it again.
Yeah, for sure. If you want to learn more about our show and what we're watching and what we're doing, you can visit our website at animonday.moe. That's animonday.moe. And you can send us questions and comments to podcast@animonday.moe. And you can find us on Facebook and Twitter. Our username is AniMondayCast, and you can find links for that on our website.
Like we said earlier, we're going to also continue to support all the shows on blackanimepodcast.com, which they describe as a directory of anime and manga podcasts by Black creators, designed as a resource and discovery tool for Black otaku. It's also been helpful for me as a white person to be part of like a broader community of anime podcasters. That's been really fun.
Yeah, and to learn the history between the Black community and anime, which was so strong.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah, especially like the Toonami era and the
Yes.
shows that were on in that time.
Yeah.
I think is crucial to my upbringing in anime and a lot of other people's. Thanks also, I guess, to Crunchyroll. We do love you, even though you took away the random button. But we'll probably have to stop mentioning that. We're not sure if we're going to start rolling on other websites besides Crunchyroll. We want to make it accessible so that people listening can have a place that they can actually go watch these. And we know not everyone has access to like all of them. So we'll figure that out and we'll let you know. But as usual, thank you to C2A for providing the intro and outro music for our show. This year in January, C2A released Senpai EP3.
Woo!
I don't even know if it's qualified as an EP. It's pretty long. So it might be his first album in that series. But it's fantastic. It is
so good.
Far and away the best anime-inspired prog metal album of all time.
It's a very specific.
That's the point.
It's very good regardless of what genre it's specifically called.
Yes. So go check that out. Find him on Bandcamp and buy his music. Support him. He's been gracious to allow Twitch streamers and podcasters and everyone to use his music, and it's very fitting for our show and really has become a staple of like all the stuff that we produce.
Yeah.
So you heard some Senpai 3 on the trailer that we put out a couple weeks ago.
Also, he's just a delight. So if you just want to follow him, he's just fun.
He is. All right. Well, I think that's it for our show. Thank you all for sticking with it.
Yeah.
For resubscribing or whatever you did. Please do share as we kind of reintroduce the normal flow of episodes. Rate everything on iTunes if you can.
Yeah, that
we
helps
really
us.
appreciate those. And just thank you so much for coming back and for hearing us. And we hope that you stick around.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We missed you guys.
For sure. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it. So we'll see you in 2 weeks for our first random episode.
Woo!
All right. Bye.
Bye. Sports anime shows there is, which is Yuri on Ice. Like,
I got to put her away.
okay. Yeah, now she's quiet. Our bird has also not been happy with the pandemic. She voices her opinions very loudly all the time. Would not recommend.